Jean-Léon Gérôme's The Snake Charmer. You've probably seen it before, maybe as the front cover of Edward Said's book, Orientalism, or in a museum. But here's the thing. This painting isn't just some picturesque snapshot of the mystical East, it's like the 19th century version of a movie set, but stunningly detailed, carefully staged, and just a bit too perfect to be real. From the hypnotic stare of the snake charmer boy to the rich, blue-tiled wall behind him, and the people of different tribes looking on, every inch of this painting is designed to mesmerize. And today, we'll be cracking it wide open, because trust me, there's a lot more drama going on in this quiet-looking painting than your last group chat. But is this history or just an elaborate fantasy? Let's step into Jérôme's world, peel back the layers, and separate fact from artistic fiction. Okay, first things first. If you haven't seen The Snake Charmer, picture this: a dimly lit room, a naked boy standing with his back to us, a massive python wrapped around his waist and draped over his shoulder like the most unsettling fashion statement ever. To one side, an elderly musician plays a flute, seemingly orchestrating the entire hypnotic scene. The boy's face is cast in shadow, but the rest of his body is bathed in an almost unnatural glow, highlighting the eerie contrast between his smooth skin and the python's rough, coiled scales. Seated against the blue glazed tile wall, a group of men watches in rapt attention, their expressions unreadable, their gaze as fixated on the performance as the snake itself. But what's the background story to this painting? Jean-Léon Gérôme painted The Snake Charmer in Constantinople in the early 1870s. But let's be real, this isn't a slice of everyday life. This is a carefully staged spectacle, a European fantasy of the Orient wrapped in dazzling precision. Gérôme, a superstar of the Parisian art scene, trained at the prestigious École des Beaux-Arts and had a serious thing for historical and exoticized scenes. Think of him as the Spielberg of 19th century Orientalist painting, every detail meticulously crafted, every brushstroke, or lack thereof, working to immerse the viewer in a cinematic vision of faraway lands. This is where the kicker comes in. While The Snake Charmer looks like a documentary moment frozen in time, it's more of a historical remix. Gérôme based his architectural details on real locations, those stunning blue tiles straight out of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, the stone floor inspired by the Mosque of Amr in Cairo, but the people, the performance, pure artistic invention. This kind of painting, often lumped under the term Orientalism, was all the rage in 19th century Europe. It fed into Western fantasies about the so-called exotic East, places imagined as sensual, mythical, and fundamentally different from Europe, and The Snake Charmer is a masterclass in this kind of myth-making. Looking deeper into the painting, we see the men who are watching the performance are dressed in an eclectic mix of garments and weapons from various Middle Eastern and North African cultures, mashing together aesthetics in a way that suggests a timeless, generalized Orient rather than any specific place or moment. What is Gérôme trying to tell us through this painting? Who is in control of the narrative? What's being emphasized and what's being left out? Alright, let's talk about the elephant, or should we say the snake in the room, because The Snake Charmer isn't just some innocent, postcard-worthy scene. No, this painting is serving up exoticism on a silver platter, complete with a side of 19th century European bias. At the center, we've got a young boy, back turned to us, standing with a massive python draped over him, like some cursed fashion statement. His head mysteriously shadowed, his body lit up like a Renaissance sculpture. The contrast between his smooth skin and the snake's scaly texture, definitely not an accident. It's giving National Geographic meets high drama fantasy novel cover. And then there's the hyper-realism. Gérôme was obsessed with detail, so much so that his paintings often look more like photographs than traditional oil paintings. You won't find loose brushstrokes here. His surfaces are so smooth that they practically disappear, reinforcing the illusion that we're peering through a window into another world. But is it a world that ever really existed? Of course, we cannot leave out the audience, a group of men decked out in an odd mix of Middle Eastern and North African fashion choices, like they raided a Hollywood costume department labeled generic exotic attire. Robes, turbans, weapons, it's all there, mashed together with no concern for historical accuracy, and they're just staring, completely hypnotized, as if they've never seen a snake before. But the real scene stealer? The jaw-dropping wall of Islamic tiles behind them. The patterns shimmer, the colors, they pop. It's straight up architectural flexing. But here's the catch. That wall is basically Gérôme showing off how well he can recreate Middle Eastern aesthetics while completely ignoring the actual people who live there. And this is where things get a bit messy. See, 19th century Europe had a huge thing for the so-called Orient, but not the real, complex, living, breathing creatures. No, they preferred an airbrushed fantasy version. Think of it like a Hollywood movie that's loosely based on true events, but it's really just an excuse for slow-motion sword fights and dramatic camel rides. European artists and writers, they painted the Middle East and North Africa as places frozen in time, mysterious, decadent, sensual, and conveniently in need of some good old Western intervention. And the snake charmer? It's exhibit A in this aesthetic. It's not a documentary, it's a mood board for colonialist daydreams. So, is it beauty? Absolutely. But is it real? Well, that's the million-dollar question. The snake charmer isn't just a painting. It's basically the blueprint for every over-the-top Hollywood fantasy about the Middle East. Think Aladdin, but with fewer singing genies and more questionable politics. This painting has everything: an exotic setting, a mysterious performance, and enough colonialist undertones to make Edward Said sigh dramatically. And speaking of Said, his groundbreaking book, Orientalism, it didn't just side-eye paintings like the snake charmer, it straight up called them out. Said argued that Western artists, scholars, and writers, they didn't just depict the East, they invented a version of it that served their own interests. The result? A fantasy world, where the Middle East and North Africa were always frozen in time, colorful, sensual, and conveniently in need of European guidance. Art critic Jonathan Jones, he takes it even further. He doesn't just call the snake charmer problematic, he calls it a sleazy imperialist vision. Oof. His argument? The painting pretends to be an innocent scene of entertainment, but in actuality, it invites the viewer into an uncomfortable position of voyeurism. The seated men, they're hypnotized by the snake charmer boy, but we, the audience, we're watching them, making us just as complicit in the spectacle. It's like a Black Mirror episode in oil paint, unsettling, layered, and making you question why you're even looking at it. Then we have Linda Nochlin, the art historian who came in with the receipts. In her legendary essay, The Imaginary Orient, she breaks down exactly why Gérôme's photorealistic style is so dangerous. See, because his paintings look so detailed and so lifelike, they feel like documentary evidence rather than fantasy. He wasn't just painting the Middle East, he was selling it as reality. It's like when a historical drama claims to be based on true events, but it conveniently ignores 90% of the actual history. Nochlin also points out the way Gérôme composes the scene. We, the viewers, we're placed in the same position as the seated men, turning both them and us into passive spectators. And let's not ignore the elephant, or rather the snake in the room, the sexual tension. The snake charmer boy is the undeniable focus point of the painting, but he's also faceless, anonymous, and reduced to a symbol of exotic mystery. His identity? Irrelevant. His role as a spectacle? Front and center. It's giving HBO drama with unresolved subtext. But wait, plot twist. Not everyone buys into this critique. Some art historians argue that the snake charmer, it deserves a more nuanced interpretation. Enter Ibn Warraq, who takes a defensive attorney approach to Gérôme's work. He claims that critics, like Nochlin, are imposing modern political readings onto a 19th century painting, and that Gérôme was simply a fascinated observer of the East, not a propagandist. His argument that Gérôme's attention to detail and precision wasn't about exploitation, but admiration. It's kind of like when people argue that Indiana Jones was just an adventurous archaeologist and not, a guy casually looting cultural artifacts. So, where does that leave us? Is the snake charmer an artistic masterpiece or an imperialist fever dream? The truth is, it's both. Gérôme's technical skill is undeniable. His use of light, texture, composition, it's nothing short of breathtaking. But at the same time, his vision of the East is a construct, a version of reality, shaped by European desires rather than lived experience. It's a painting that's as much about the Western gaze as it is about the so-called Orient. And that's exactly why the snake charmer still sparks debate today. It's not just about a painting hanging in a museum, it's about how images shape the way we see other cultures. Think about it. How many times have movies, books, and TV shows repeated the same exotic, mysterious tropes about the Middle East? This painting, it didn't create those stereotypes, but it definitely helped cement them in the Western imagination. Fast forward to today, and the snake charmer continues to be a conversation starter. Museums that display it, they often include discussions on Orientalism and colonialism, acknowledging the problematic aspects rather than sweeping them under the rug. It's like when an old Disney movie gets re-released with a disclaimer about outdated cultural depictions, except instead of a 10-second warning, it's entire academic conferences. So, what's the takeaway? The snake charmer isn't just a snapshot of 19th century fantasy, it's a reflection of how the West has long constructed its image of the East, whether you see it as a mesmerizing work of art, a deeply problematic artifact, or some mix of both. One thing is certain, Jérôme still has us under his spell, and that's what makes this painting, for better or worse, truly unforgettable. So hey, what exactly do you see when you look at the Snake Charmer painting by Jean-Léon Gérôme? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video, and hit that subscribe button to get notified about more content from us.